Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Rob.
So here we are on 36, and I'd like you to go a bit deeper, if you could, into this idea of different populations seem to have different time points for the cessation of aging.
Well, actually, these are populations we pretty much deliberately produced to be different in their patterns of aging. They're populations that we first started to build, in effect, in 1991, 20 years ago. And in the typical Rose Lab pattern of perseverance, we have sustained their selection regime ever since. These are populations that had their genomes done and released in a Nature article in September of 2010. And we're very proud of these little beasties. And not only do they have very different patterns with respect to their aging phase, they have very distinctly different time points of the cessation of aging. And that means they provide us with experimental material with which we can look at the biology of what it means to have your aging stop at a different point in time.
So this builds on the point that if you understand the fruit fly and how it works, you can make reasonable assumptions then about how other populations that reproduce in the same way, aka humans, how aging would affect us too. Am I right?
Well, you're on the road. The point of these populations is they're the best defined populations in which we can compare what happens with one time point at which aging stops versus populations that have a different time point at which aging stops. So they're the ideal experimental material for making that comparison and drawing those inferences. And now we're working on them, and we're characterizing what those underlying physiological differences are. I do not, however, think that these populations will tell us specifically what will happen in humans with different time points with respect to the cessation of aging. It's sort of like, Galileo playing games with balls of different sizes rolling down a smoothly polished wooden surface, a tilted plane. These were the best defined experiments that people could do at that time on the impact of gravity and motion and momentum and the foundations of what later became known as Newton's 3 laws of motion. In the same way, these are like these smoothly polished metal balls with which we can determine basic principles of what's involved when the time point for the cessation of aging moves.
But for me, the idea that there is a time point for the cessation of aging is itself very exciting.
Me too, as a scientist, and I guess also as a human being.
Okay.